Just a quick introduction. My name is Sarah Smith. I'm the boating education coordinator for Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and I'm based in Helena, Montana. And I've got the Great Missouri River right around here. Grew up fishing on the Ruby River down in Sheridan, Montana. So I love Montana and all of our rivers, and I'm glad that you joined us. And I'm going to have TE introduce himself.
Hi, T.E. Lewis. One, it's an honor to be here. I appreciate that invitation by Sarah, and it's an honor to be a volunteer for world-renowned Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. I've been bringing an awareness message across Montana with Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, from Billings to Helena to Missoula and Kalispell, about floating rivers from a one-man inflatable pontoon boat. I love to float and fish. I've got over 10,000 logged river hours on the Flathead River system. I do the Yellowstone, the Blackfoot, the Clark Fork. It's just fishing is just a passion for me. And I used to speak years, but now it's decades. So I'll go ahead and share that with you.
And welcome to the other folks that joined us tonight.
Welcome.
Have any questions at any point in time, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask them. We're going to go over a few different things tonight, but again, if you have questions, we're here for you. So with that, thanks for joining us, and we're going to jump on in. So I'm going to kind of start us out on, the downer note, but obviously, this is why we're doing this. People drown every year on Montana's rivers. In all different types of boats and inflatables. And from 2010 to 2019, 31 people drowned just on our rivers. That didn't include lakes or anything. And that just includes the boating fatalities that I get information about. So that doesn't include people on inflatable pool toys or swimming or cliff jumping and things like that. And that also contributes to river deaths every year as well. So we just want to kind of give you some information so that you're kind of more aware of some of the reasons people get into problems and ways that you can make sure you don't get into those same problems, because obviously we'd love to have zero be our number every year. So kind of a sad note, but just the reason that we're here doing this. And these are the things that we're going to talk about this evening, knowing before you go. So time of year can make a really big difference on when you're out on the water. River difficulties, there's an entire system for ranking river difficulties we'll talk about. Really knowing your skill level and being extremely honest about that with yourself and with others. The kind of gear that you should have with you so that you are prepared if you do get into a situation. And then we're going to talk a little bit about rescue, what that might look like, or making the decision of, if it's self-rescue or if you're trying to help other people, and being aware of not getting yourself as a second victim. So that's what we're going to cover. So we're going to jump right into time of year. So I think a lot of us have probably seen something like this photo in Montana. Spring is especially a dangerous time because we have all our snow melt, we have rain, our rivers are flooding, overflowing. And even earlier in the year, we have ice coming off the rivers. It stays pretty cold here in the spring. But with all of this high water, it's fast, it's cold, it's super muddy, as you can see in that picture. Visibility is really low. Debris is unpredictable because the water is going so fast and you just don't know if things are coming up behind you or things are stuck in front of you. But yeah, having that visibility be so low, there might be hazards in the water that you can't see. And it's really cold. So if you get into a bad situation, hypothermia becomes a very real concern very quickly when you're submerged in these cold, fast waters for any kind of amount of time. T, do you have anything to add about that?
Yeah, the thing you have to remember is runoff is a very crazy time. And to add to that, things can come up underneath the water as well that are floating along, depending on how strong the current is. But as the river starts to settle, what I have to remind folks of is that it also presents different potential hazards. So as it calms down, as we get into summer, runoff is starting to calm down, and everybody wants to jump on there. It could be a little bit too soon, only because rocks are starting to emerge, other debris is starting to show where you didn't see it when it was higher and flowing a lot faster. Rivers change every year. They truly do. As I said earlier, I've got a lot of hours just on the Flathead River system, and every year this river changes after runoff. And the reminder is there's a time and a time not to. This goes also to correlate to your own skill level. It depends on your watercraft. It depends on the actual skill level you have, what the watercraft and is actually ranked for as well. But as this water settles, as it lowers and lowers, and this happens, through June, through July, into August, just like that, it keeps lowering, more potential hazards do present themselves.
Yes, agreed. And I can't emphasize enough that rivers change. So even if you think you know a river, the next year it might have a different channel. There's a lot of things that could happen in a year's time. So one thing that you can do if you want to try to check on water levels, sometimes our Fish, Wildlife, and Parks offices might have some information about that. You could give them a call, but there is a website that you can actually go check the cubic feet per second. So if you ever hear people talking about CFS levels, that's what they're referring to. So I'm going to stop sharing really quick here and show you that website, just so you can kind of get a sense of what that looks like. And I picked, can you see that, T?
Ooh, the Bitterroot River.
Yes, I picked the Bitterroot River near Darby. And so you can see in this graph, and you can put in, how long you want to see things like that. If you want to see a couple months, if you want to see trends over a year, this is just in the last week or so. And so you can see that little triangle is the median, and how it's gone up, it's coming back down a little. With warmer temperatures, we're probably going to see it go back up a little, but it looks pretty high to me right now. So this is just a good way to go in and look at the river that you're interested in being on and seeing kind of what the water is looking like. I believe it has temperature somewhere as well. So you can some of them have that. You can kind of see where that temperature is, but this is just a really good free tool that you can use to go in and look at what kind of water is going on in the places that you're interested in being. So just a fun kind of free tool to check it out. And you can even, like I said, look at a whole year. So you can maybe predict like, oh, well, maybe the runoff's going to be happening this time of year. But again, Montana's unpredictable. So we never quite know when our first, good melt is going to be. All right, let me jump back into the PowerPoint here. All right. So, oops, go back. So the next most important thing, I think, you decide, okay, I'm going to go out. The water might be high. It might not be high, it might be low, but reading a river is a really important skill to try to develop. And something you can, just start with local experts. If there's fly fishing shops or sporting goods stores, they're always worth checking with those folks to see if people have been out on their, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to add, you can call up your local rafting companies.
Yep, rafting guides. The folks that are out on the water all the time, they can kind of give you an idea of what the conditions are looking like, if there's new hazards that they've noted, things like that. But for you, it's a good skill to try to kind of develop as you want to be out on the water more. And so water takes the path of least resistance, right? We know it's going to flow where it's going to flow. And these are some kind of vocabulary words, but some of the things that you really want to kind of keep an eye on when you're going down a river. So a strainer, I like to think of it as kind of like if you picture a colander, you know, the water is going to run through, but bigger things like you in a boat or a kayak or are not going to get through. So that might be a tree with branches and things. And the amount of water pushing against that it's a high impact situation. And so it can pin you into these strainers, and it might be really difficult to get out of there. Rocks, TE mentioned that. Under the surface, just above the surface, always things that you kind of need to look out for, especially depending on what kind of boat you're in. Eddies, I've got some pictures that I can kind of show you, but they can be kind of a good place to hang out unless you hit this kind of eddy line that could swirl you around a little bit. And then low head dams. And I'm sure if any of you have been on the water, you've heard about low head dams and how dangerous they are. And so let me, I'm going to go ahead and just because these are kind of hard to put into words, I'm going to show you some illustrations of what these kind of look like. So let's see, which one is it? This one. Can you see the typical river hazards? Is that the page you're seeing, T?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So here's an example of a sweeper or a strainer. You've got this eddy where you've got kind of this back current happening. You've got undercut banks, things like that, sandbars. You don't want to get beached on something, the dams. And this is paddling.com. So it's a really great resource if you want to go on here and really like look at these things in depth. They've got definitions for all of these, but they've got a really good illustration of kind of what happens with the dam. And so a lot of people think that going over the dam is the dangerous part, which can be, but because of the way these are constructed, you can get sucked under and get into this never-ending kind of loop that is really hard to get out of, especially if you're in a boat or in a kayak or in a pontoon or something like that. So these are really dangerous, and it's important that you go around them. If you have no other option, you know, maybe just don't go on that water, but these things are dangerous for sure.
Yeah, and there's actually natural setups like this, what we call overboards.
Yeah.
I know the North Fork of the Flathead River, if you could bring the top of that back up, that would be awesome.
Oh, sure.
Has a huge rock formation, and it forms a natural
This one
type of overpour, what we call with the low head dams. And if I remember correctly studying this, there's about 500 low head dams in Montana. To my knowledge, most have signs to portage. Portage means to pull over, go around it on land, and come back to the water, because you really don't want to get into this. Sometimes they're extremely dangerous to see, even if you're facing the horizon. And while we're looking at this, this view that Sarah has for us, and check out how you've got this sweeper strainer sitting here. Strainers are also referred to as log jams, something that can be right across the river. And keep in mind, the river is always going somewhere. It's always flowing somewhere. So you have this push that's coming no matter what craft you're in. And so that's why you don't want to get tied up in that, because they're designed actually to strain. In other words, they're going to push things under, strain out the river. You got a nice sharp curve here. If you don't know what's going on, you can get into problems in a sharp curve on a river as well. So the best thing, if it's available, is always scout ahead, always look ahead. I think some of the big problems that happen is folks have a tendency not to keep looking down the horizon at a river and see what's coming up. And this river, believe it or not, they're beautiful in this state, they're gorgeous, but they're merciless at the same time. So if you get into these kind of areas where you've got that potential hazard coming, you've got to get out from under, away from it. You got to, depending on your craft, for instance, a one-man inflatable pontoon boat, I would point towards that strainer and paddle away using the current to push me past it. But I would point the boat towards this and paddle away from it so that I can safely go past it and then straighten the boat back out. And it's different for different crafts, whether they're rafts or kayaks, stuff like that. But the thing is, and the point that I truly want to make in looking at all of this right here is that as you come down through the river, of course, you want to portage around a low head dam. You always want to look down the horizon, but there's a sandbar here. Interesting about sandbars is that if you get towards that point, the water's fairly slow, but as it pushes towards the opposite bank, it gets extremely fast. And you really have to scout ahead to watch for any kind of potential hazard with that as well.
Yes, thank you. All right, let's jump back to this. Again, a lot of really great resources online, obviously, if you're interested in like really digging into this more, but it's definitely something, you know, like he said, if you can scout ahead, even walking sections that you can access, if you know that you're going to be boating somewhere, just to kind of get the lay of the land is a really good idea. So.
Hey,
Yes,
Sarah.
scouting is a friend.
Go
Hi.
ahead. Hi.
This is Stephanie. Can you hear me?
I can.
So me and my husband just bought a raft, and we're pretty new to the area. We're in Missoula,
Okay.
and we spent a lot of time waiting last year, and so we want to start taking this raft out. We know it's runoff right now, so it's not the best time. So you guys are talking about like scouting ahead, and this is something I think we're getting familiar with. And do you guys have any recommendations as to how you do that? Like if we're in the raft, like, is it just beaching the raft and walking up the shore? Is it, are there any other recommendations for us as to how to scout ahead and look at what's coming?
Well, I'll start with the fact that the first 100 hours of a river section that you've decided upon are your most dangerous because you're not familiar with it. Usually, because we're very blessed here, a lot of the rivers do run with different forest roads and different highways, different roads like that, which help you to scout. And then we're not talking about getting remote, and I wouldn't recommend getting very remote if you're beginning. You can scout obviously by driving, you can scout by hiking. The thing is you want to identify what the river looks like before going down that particular section, and try to pick, if you can, a short section between two fishing access sites or boat ramps, if you want to call it that. Montana calls them fishing access sites. You want to be able to identify them as well because they look different from inside the river. So you may know what it looks like sitting there at that fishing access site looking at the river, but when you're on the inside of the river, and I can share with you, I've seen many people miss the boat ramp because they couldn't identify it from inside the river.
Yeah, we made that rookie mistake with our kayak last year on our maiden voyage. Yeah. So we're prepared for that with the raft.
Yeah, you learn from it. You can use like little small handheld 3-point GPSs to help mark these things and kind of get an idea. Scouting goes a long way, and you got to, of course, wait for the river to calm down. You can ask around when the best time to float a particular section is, but you really want it to calm down, and you want to be able to see as much as possible, because once you launch into that river, this is a whole different world. This is a current. This is a river that's pushing you along, that's looking for that, path of least resistance, and it's never going to stop. It will never stop. I've trained with some of the best in the state in swiftwater rescue, and I've seen some crazy stuff just in training. It's amazing how much respect I have for river current, and it looks calm. Montana's got big, beautiful rivers, and it looks calm. But I'll share a hint with you. I like to fly, fish, and float. I look for river sections that I don't have to really put my hands on oars a lot. because when they're on the oars, they're not on the fly fishing rod. You know what I'm saying?
100%. We're anglers, and that's why we bought the raft. And so, I mean, it's So that's what we're looking to do is, and we're so close to the Bitterroot, and we understand the braids and the nature of that river, and so we're just looking for advice on the best and safest way to row that river.
It's
Scout,
just
There's
scout and
Yeah. There's a notorious Lowhead Dam on the Bitterroot as well. Caused multiple deaths. So, river maps are another good investment. It's not gonna have obviously like hazards that might pop up with high water and things, but some man-made stuff that's hanging around would probably be on some of those river maps. You could also, if you're in Missoula, go to the trailhead. I'm not sure if that's where you bought the raft, but they are experts in a lot of this stuff, and they sell a ton of watercraft, and they would be a really good resource, I think, to ask about kind of where you guys should start. The Clark Fork, I don't float those rivers a lot. I know the Blackfoot can get a little dicey in places. The Bitterroot has a few of its own, that notorious Lowhead Dam. And so it might be something that you do a little bit more in some of those slower sections on the Clark Fork, get used to your raft and how easy it is to, beach it and come back out and things like that, depending on how heavy it is and how many people you have. But I think Trailhead would be a really great resource there to chat about good beginner sections around Missoula.
And another good thing to think about.
We got our kayak from there, so we know those folks.
They're awesome.
Where you were talking about that? You're talking about that Lowhead Dam on the Bitterroot. Where is that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me see if I can. I'm gonna see if I can.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, that's fine.
What I was going to suggest too is if you folks, if there's any kind of a guide service to take you down a section you're interested in, that's always advisable and not very expensive. Let somebody else do the work. And then if you have anybody that's trustworthy and knowledgeable, that can take you down there as well. I've done both. To be honest with you, I have no problem because I really don't have anything to prove to this river. I'm there to enjoy it. I'm there to fish, but I'm also there to come back home, if you know what I'm saying. So I don't have a problem hiring a guide service if I'm not familiar with it that season or that year. I haven't been on it in a couple of years. Just because I have these kind of hours on the Flathead River system doesn't mean I have it on the Gallatin, right?
Right, totally. And we're middle-aged folks. We're not scared to have people tell us what to do. As a matter of fact, we want that.
So here's an article about unfortunately, a little girl died when they went over the raft, but it's 3 miles downstream from Woodside Fishing Access Site. So if you go to our Fish, Wildlife, and Parks website, we do have a map, I think, with all our fishing access sites on it. So that's another good resource that you can check out. And I think it does say maybe how many miles are between those. But yeah, if you 3 miles downstream of Woodside Fishing Access, and they've signed it and done all kinds of things. And
you can research the website. Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks does a great job of identifying the fishing access sites on the different.
Yeah, no, we know that. We're really familiar with that because we've been doing a lot of walk wading the past year without boats, and then we bought a inflatable kayak and did a little bit like around town, but we definitely know that site and where are the sites, and we're familiar with the Woodside site as well too. So
good,
that's good. But now we've got this raft, so we can cover a lot more water. So we just want to, I'm just trying to get as much safety information because it's a whole different animal than jumping in the kayak or a stand-up paddleboard or and taking it down the Bitterroot or the Blackfoot. So
and might even offer classes. Or they might know people that do in Missoula and like actual hands-on in person. Hopefully, if we get to be able to start doing that stuff again, rowing classes, things like that. So I definitely check in with them.
Yeah, there's the Zootown surfers and I'm doing a kayaking class with them on the Blackfoot. But it's different when you're in a a 13.5 foot raft and
Yeah,
you're
especially if
rowing.
there's only two of you.
Exactly. Versus
Yeah.
like, a one-man inflatable kayak, so.
Yep.
Anyway,
Right, yeah.
I'll let you go on with your presentation. Sorry. Thank
Okay.
you for answering my
No,
question.
that's
Oh,
fine.
great question. Great question.
That's what we're here for. Okay. So again, yeah, if you have more questions or want to kind of see more illustrations of some of those hazards, that paddling.com is a really good place. And so this is kind of what we've been talking about already, but being really honest about your skill level and not getting yourself into a situation because you're trying to prove something to somebody, or the river looks pretty easy. It looks slow, but again, there's a lot of factors influencing the current and what's going on that you might not be able to see. But just like Stephanie is doing a lot of homework and scouting, like that's perfect. That's what we want to see. Not just going to Costco, buying a kayak and jumping on the Blackfoot River half an hour later. So we definitely want people to be honest with themselves and with other people. I have some friends that are whitewater kayakers and they're always like, come with us. And I'm like, no, I'm not that good. I know my skill level and I'm not gonna, no, thank you. So yeah, just don't let other people push you into situations that you aren't comfortable with or don't legitimately have the skill level to be in. And I think this next one is important. We have the Missouri River over here. It's a very big, kind of slow moving river. People drowned on the Missouri. And I always hear people say, oh, the Missouri is safe. It's slow. It's big. And people still drown. So never assume a river is safe. Always be prepared, be watching downstream. You can enjoy yourself and fish and things like that, but just being aware while you're on the water is going to serve you really well. I always like to say boat with others if you can. I know there's a lot of people that like to go solo, but if you have other folks with you, it can really help if you get yourself into a situation where you're stuck or, they can pull you out or you can pull them out, things like that. And leaving a float plan. And there's all kinds of float plans you can fill out, but it's as simple as texting a friend or a family member or calling and saying, hey, I'm going on the Blackfoot River. We're going to start at this fishing access site. We're going to end at this one. We should be back by 3 o'clock. So if you're not, and they don't hear from you, they know that they need to call search and rescue, and search and rescue knows where to start looking for you. So if you're going somewhere, make sure if you decide to go get a hamburger after, you tell them that so they don't deploy search and rescue and they're out there looking for you while you're having a hamburger. So
I want to touch on something
yeah.
Sarah mentioned earlier about how the water is cold. This is actually one of the awareness programs we did across Montana with Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. And this is called a rapid deflation. In other words, I took and I've sunk these and I've flipped them in demonstrations to the public and stuff. This is very cold water. It's probably right at about 49, 50 degrees. All right. So this rapid deflation, as you see the pontoon, the left pontoon is going down very fast, very cold water. And if you notice, I have an inflatable life vest on here. And one of the things that we were trying to present to everyone, because life vests are a very big issue when it comes to tragedies on Montana rivers. This thing goes down in the water, sinks with me in it. All right. And I have the proper gear on. You can have dry suits on or double wetsuits. So you have to kind of be prepared for that kind of temperature. But in this particular situation, this inflated, all right, in 3 seconds in that extremely cold temperature. And we've done this for years, showing that these inflatable life vests, and they used to be just a ripcord. You can actually see the yellow ripcord on this picture. But if you cannot pull that, they will auto inflate. And they're very comfortable. I fly fish with them all the time and all this. But to explain this, these work. These life vests are comfortable. They work. They've worked in some of the most frigid water you can imagine.
Yes, definitely. A really good option for folks that don't want to wear kind of a bulkier life jacket. Oh yeah, he's got one. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so they can see that. Can you show us that again, TE?
Yeah.
They can really see it. Super
Yeah.
lightweight.
Super lightweight, fits around pretty easy. I'm gonna go over here. Boom. I'm fly fishing, I'm swimming, whatever. Has a rip cord to it. But if I can't pull that rip cord, it will auto inflate. That's the beauty of the technology today with these things. They don't get hot. All right. I mean, you think about summertime, it's warmer and all that, and you have a full life vest. Oh, it's too warm. And all that. These guys right here work.
Yep,
I mean,
and it'll definitely keep your head above water.
we've been years demonstrating this in some of the most extreme conditions you can imagine, and they work. It's just been a blast. It's been a little cold, but it's been a blast.
Yeah, and they're getting way more affordable than they used to be. So that's a huge bonus for sure. Just make sure if you do, I mean, any life jacket, of course, we'll talk about life jackets a little bit, but make sure it's US Coast Guard approved. I had a game warden sending me some photos of inflatable. They were life jackets, but they were not actually US Coast Guard approved. They were being sold on Amazon. And so there's no official testing there. Like they could have, I don't know what they would have done if you inflated it, if they would have kept your head above water or not, but definitely pay attention to labels when you do purchase those things to make sure you're not getting, as you know, even with kids, they have swim aids. It's not a life jacket if it's not US Coast Guard approved with their number on it. So just be aware of that. Not all life jackets are created equally.
That is true.
Okay. So then we kind of spoke a little bit about knowing river difficulties. And so there are international scales. There's kind of a class system that's used on some Western rivers. The main point to take away from this, even if it says something as a class 1, depending on the weather, the time of year, the location, things like that, that can change. So you just have to keep that in mind. Of course, you know, maybe a class 1 during the highest point of runoff is not a class 1 anymore. So I'm gonna take you to the NRS website really quickly. They have kind of a nice overview of the river classes. And again, you can spend tons of time on the NRS website. I mean, they are a company, they sell products, but they have a lot of really good information on their website. And so class 1, you've got this fast moving water, small waves, few obstructions. That's a great place to start. You know, class 1, self-rescue is easy, things like that. Again, this time of year, it's probably a little higher rating, you know, than it would be during, you know, July or something. But again, you can kind of just look at these, read them, think about your skill level and decide if it's something that you feel comfortable and know that you're skilled enough to handle. So again, this NRS website, they have tons of cool articles on things, and they do link to the safety code of American whitewater. And this is really specific. I mean, they're writing it specifically for whitewater kayakers kind of, or rafters, but it has a lot of really good information that any boater can use. So if you have time and you want to go look something up, that's another kind of good resource to take some time and read through for sure. So know your river difficulties for sure.
To add to that, you also have to know the crafts ranking, you know,
Yes.
as far as that goes. So if you have a craft that's just rated for class 1 water, obviously you don't want to put it in class 3 or class 4 water as well.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of water that's going to be class 1, but you'll also, in that section that you pick to float, will run across maybe class 2 situations, you know, that are in that particular section, maybe even more.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So you can see this kayak she's in. That's probably not something that you're going to want to take on anything too difficult or extreme. These recreational kayaks are not built for whitewater. You know, that's why they have very specific kind of whitewater kayaks that you can purchase. So if you are just getting started and you want to go pick something out, depending on, do you want to do white water? Do you want to just have a nice recreational kayak or a sit on top or things like that, or a raft? So that's good to know if you're shopping right now. What do you want to be doing? So we'll talk a little bit about gear. And so again, as we mentioned, is your boat suited for the water you plan to be on? And then knowing the carrying capacity so that you're not overloading your boat, because that can get you into trouble as well. So if you have a small kayak, you don't want to be packing it with people or pets or things that are above the capacity, and they should have a capacity plate or tell you somewhere how much weight you can put in that craft. So just be aware of that. Life jackets, again, here's an inflatable that he inflated, which is pretty cool. That tube is what you could actually blow it up with that tube if your cartridge didn't go off for some reason. And I've done it before in about 3 big breaths. I've inflated one, and that's also how you deflate it. They make paddling life jackets that are shorter. So if you're sitting in a canoe or a kayak or whatnot, they're very comfortable. They also keep you warm, which I'm usually pretty happy about, even in the summer on some of the water in Montana. Again, it's cold, so the life jacket can kind of keep you warm. But get a life jacket that's suited for the activity. So those old kind of horseshoe collar ones aren't the most comfortable. There's so many choices out there these days that you can get something that fits you. They make life jackets for women specifically that are cut a little bit differently to fit a woman better. So there's just a lot of options. A throw rope is a really good thing to have. And basically it is a bag of rope that you can throw out if you need to try to get it to somebody to pull them back in. I recommend practicing with that so that you know which end to hold and which end not to, and that kind of thing. And you can get them in different lengths. So having a throw rope in your kayak or your raft or wherever is just a really good thing to have. Again, we've touched on the cold water a lot, but really make sure you're dressing for the coldest temperatures that you might encounter, especially if you do flip your kayak or you get out for lunch and getting back in your kayak, you tip over or something. That's usually when people fall in and out is when they're getting in and out of a kayak. So if you get wet and there's a little wind or it's rainy or things like that, it can get cold really, really fast and you can get hypothermia pretty quickly. So make sure you have extra clothing, or if you're going out like this time of year that you're wearing wetsuits, dry suits, that kind of thing. I'm a huge proponent of having a first aid kit, whatever I'm doing in Montana. Take a class if you don't know how to do some of the things that you might need to do out there. Again, Montana is a pretty harsh environment, so being prepared and knowing how to use a basic first aid kit to its fullest is a really good thing. A helmet, I'm going to let TE talk about a helmet.
So the helmet, I showed the throw rope a minute ago for us, but the helmet obviously is used, you see it a lot in rafting and in rescue and stuff like that. I happen to, which I'll show you, have one.
I'm going to stop that so we can see.
All the time. Just a standard kind of target helmet for me. If you're in a situation, it's good to put it on because there's a lot of rocks in Montana and you don't want to bump your head and stuff. But if you've ever been on the river and the weather changes and a hailstorm arrives, and I'm talking quarter inch to half inch hail, you're going to want a helmet. I'll tell you this right now. Been there, done it, don't ever want to do it again. And they are really handy to have because that stuff hits pretty hard. They are great to have with you as well.
And you just have yours, you don't wear it all the time, correct? You have it with you in case.
I strap it on my boat and carry it with me because if I have to go, and let's say if I'm in a situation where somebody may be needing assistance, and we all help each other out there. So it's nothing it's just the way Montana is, then that goes on my head because you're dealing with rocks, you're dealing with somebody else. Then it's kind of like the throw rope, having it, and they have all kinds of different models. They have braided and they have polypropylene. I throw or carry a 75 footer
Can you show us that again? Now that I have the screen unshared.
Believe it or not, we have these specialties that we all get. That's a little care bear that connects to my boat real quick on.
Yeah.
And throw that across through. One of the things I discovered is I could actually toss one of these very far. So it became kind of like just second nature. So I have that and I have a helmet. And I never want to have to break them out, obviously, but they're there in case it's needed, you know, because you never know. I mean, anybody can get into any situation on a river. It doesn't matter what watercraft you have. And it's just, I guess it's as an outdoorsman, as long as I've done this, it's a way that I feel I'm responsible towards Montana's outdoors, you know. Have that kind of preparation and training. And I can't emphasize enough about training. You know, the more cards you can put in your favor up against unpredictable wildlife, unpredictable weather patterns, unpredictable rivers, right? The better that is for you. And even though I do all this training, I'll share with you, like I share with my family, that doesn't guarantee I'll come home. But I'd rather have those cards in my favor for sure.
Definitely. And that stuff doesn't take up very much room. So again, I think it's just it's a no-brainer to have those with you. Another piece of safety equipment that takes up no room, a whistle or some kind of signaling device. 3 blasts on a whistle. 3 is kind of the international signal for distress. So especially if you're on a river and there's other folks around but not in sight, if you do 3 blasts on this whistle, people are going to know you need some help. And it's much easier to hear this over rushing, crashing water, or than you trying to scream or, you know, I mean, if you can get this in your mouth, I usually have mine on my life jacket. So it's right where I can get it into my mouth and blow on it. This is a life whistle. So it's definitely, it's very loud. I don't give kids these ones. Did you have a question?
Yes. Where did you buy that particular whistle?
So I order these from Life Whistles, and at the end here, if you guys want to send me your address, I will mail you this, and I have some other little goodies I'll show you at the end. I'm happy to send a couple of them if you need them for folks in your household so that you have a good whistle.
You know, and I want to share with you that Sarah's made a very good point about a whistle. Having it on your life vest or close to you is extremely important. That's the big thing you need to. You can't just have it stuffed in a bag somewhere or somewhere on the boat or like that. You really need to have access to it just in case.
Yes,
Great
and then
point.
the last thing I have on our PowerPoint is bear spray. And it's probably something, if you've ever gone to any of our Fish, Wildlife, and Parks presentations, we're going to talk about having bear spray. You know, most of the places in the state now, you might have a fairly good chance of having an encounter with a black bear or a grizzly bear. Boating is no different. The Blackfoot especially, I've seen so many black bears on the shores of the Blackfoot River. So having bear spray, and again, somewhere you can get to it, is just a really good idea. Even if you're, you know, especially if you're getting out and having a picnic for lunch or something like that, carrying bear spray in Montana while you're recreating, any recreation at this point, is just a really solid, good idea. So bear spray.
They frequently
Yes,
water.
for sure.
And let me carry that further. You want to have access to this, quick access. And I mean, if you think about it, if you got it stuffed somewhere, what are you going to do? Tell the bear to wait a minute?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You can't.
Yeah. If you don't have it where you can grab it, it's like not having it.
Especially if you're going to step off onto the bank into areas, especially remote ones. You mentioned a great one with the Blackfoot and stuff.
And then I do have an extra paddle on there, and it's something that I don't know if a lot of people think about, but even just, you know, just a little short collapsible one or something, because if you lose your paddle, you're kind of done. I mean, you can't steer. it's going to be really difficult. So if for some reason you accidentally drop that paddle and it floats off without you, it's good to have, or just have it attached in some way so that you don't get into a situation where you're in the middle of a river without a paddle. So
I think that's extremely overlooked as well. And I'll take it even a step further. A lot of these different crafts have little kits. Let's see if I got this right. And carry stuff like, you take an inflatable pontoon boat.
mhm,
I actually carry a spare oar lock,
smart.
uh,
And a patch kit, not something we had on the PowerPoint, but
a little patch kit, just because anything can happen. It's one thing if the road is right beside you. It's another thing if you're remote and
mhm,
there's no quick and easy way out. All you have to do is think about going into the back country. Think about going into like the Bob Marshall or something like that. There's no quick way out as far as that goes.
mhm.
So having these little extras, and it's not expensive, it's just being prepared because you just never know. You never know. You might puncture something. I've seen this. This is an actual brass oar lock. I've seen this busted on the river. I mean, actually busted from an oar. I've seen my share of oars bent, rocks and stuff we mentioned. So Sarah makes a great point as far as having that extra oar with you. It really makes a world of difference as to whether you're going to have a miserable day or you're going to be able to be successful and get to the end of your float.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's when people are always like, oh yeah, I never thought of that. I'm like, well, it's pretty important. So, okay, so we're kind of going to end here talking about rescue. And this is a topic, I think this is kind of a hard topic. I mean, self-rescue is one thing. If you have your life jacket on, you're already going to take out a lot of the factors that would make a situation where you fall out of the boat or get tipped. It's going to make the situation better just to have your life jacket on. The law is anyone under 12 has to wear it in the state, or if you're, being towed behind a boat or on a personal watercraft, but just do it. Just wear your life jacket. It'll make things so much better for you. Don't try to, unless it's going to help you float, don't try to wrangle your equipment. Get yourself taken care of first. Trying to get your kayak or raft, if it's in a situation that's going to make it more dangerous for you, let it go. I'm going to talk about these little stickers here at the end. And then when I say don't fight the water, I'm kind of saying, like, try to keep your common sense, try to keep, obviously your head will hopefully be above water if you have your life jacket on, and try to just get your bearings before you kind of start thrashing or fighting or trying to swim in a direction that's not going to work for you. Just kind of using your common sense in an emergency situation is easy for me to say right now, but obviously harder when you're actually in the situation. But just not getting yourself into a worse situation because you're panicking, basically. Again, easy to say now, but something, maybe put your life jacket on one of these days, walk out to an easy part of a river and jump in and see what your body does. You'll gasp, right? It's cold. So not getting a mouthful of water is always a good way to start if possible, but trying to ground yourself and just figure out where you are, orienting yourself downriver, things like that. It's just something that you should try to do if you can. Rescuing others, as T mentioned, there's a lot of folks boating and we do always want to try to help each other. But I never want anyone to become an additional victim if they're not capable or able to safely try to help another boater. And so that's where, like those throw ropes come in really handy. But, the person that you're trying to rescue or the people are going to be panicked. They're not going to be helping you probably. They're going to be grasping at you, pulling at your boat, your oars, whatever it might be. So if you're not completely in control of the situation, get help. If you have a whistle, try to get other boaters to help you. If you have cell phone service or radio signal or whatever, try to get help as fast as you can without getting yourself in a situation that's going to cause you to be a fatality along with somebody else. So that's kind of where this idea of training comes in. And again, a lot of us are kind of, recreational boaters, but it never hurts to take water safety rescue classes if you can, if you have opportunities. There's, gosh, I think Bitterroot Trout Unlimited was just offering one not too long ago. I'm not sure if that's already over or not. But this Montana River Guides, you can check out that website if you want, but they offer a variety of swift water rescue classes. And so those kinds of resources are really invaluable if you know you're going to be on the water a lot. And again, taking a CPR or first aid class. So if you need to give someone CPR that's been in the water or know how to deal with hypothermia, those kinds of things, training is really invaluable in those situations. So I just caution everyone, I don't want to say don't help, but I don't want you getting yourself into a worse situation by trying to help in a situation where you cannot control the outcome and you become an additional victim. So
That's a great point. This is an example too of another cold water immersion demonstration. And there's kind of a funny story with this. This is demonstrating that you can actually get out of a framed inflatable pontoon boat. And that's something you have to think about. If you're in a situation, can I get out of the watercraft as well, whether it's a kayak, raft, anything like that? The funny part of that amongst fishermen is we have a rolling joke with this particular photo, and that fish not biting is no excuse in Montana, by the way. So
you'll go to any length to catch.
I'm grabbing a trout there for that one. But you know, you make some great points on this. Don't fight the water. Even in the summer when it's nice and warm, I mean, some of the water temperatures we have are in the 50s. So when you hit that water, you're underneath the water, and all of a sudden, you know, it just takes your breath away, and your first breath coming in is underwater. And sadly, that's where the potential for drowning can begin, and a lot of it. Life jacket, extremely important. Helmets, inflatable life vest. When Sarah talks about don't fight the water, this is a great thing because the water's already pushing you. All right, what you have to do is get orientated, like she mentioned, find out kind of where you're at and find where the safest zone is for you and get into a safer situation. But don't fight against the water. You know, work with the water, get to that safer area. She mentions don't become an additional victim. An inflatable pontoon boat, for instance, is not a rescue boat. It is not a rescue boat. And if you go to try to stop and you hit up against something or try to rescue and you got river pushing up against you, it's going to flip. And that's framed, that's metal, and those are oars, and that's not a pretty experience. So you have to know your watercraft very well. And don't, I can't emphasize enough, if you're in trouble, and I totally support Sarah on this one and what she's told you, do not hesitate to call for help. Whistle, whatever it is, because the rivers are beautiful, but again, they can actually be merciless to all of us.
Definitely. No one's going to judge you if you need help out there. Just get help.
We've all needed that.
Yeah. So we'll take some questions if you have any. You have my email address, but I'm going to put it up here too for the recording. Just a pitch. We have boating education classes online, and we have a free home study course that just kind of talks about all kinds of boating related things, including motorboats and rules of the road and different things. But if you are interested in taking that, just let me know. I can get you a free home study packet. Sometimes you can even get discounts on your boat insurance if you have a motorboat or something. But just another good resource. There's also a free paddling course that I can send you the information for. Totally free online paddling course. That I would love to hook you up with. So please just let me know if I can give you any resources. I'm happy to do that. Yeah. Do you guys have any questions for us? Okay. Well, thanks for coming again. We don't.
Thank you.
Wait, I do have a question. Sorry.
No, go
Sorry.
ahead. Yeah. Go for it.
Ask away.
I definitely want the sticker for the boat, and I definitely want the thing that you can put the the little twisty waterproof thing That would be great. But my question is, do you have recommendations for swift water rescue classes and wilderness first aid and CPR classes?
So I think in Missoula, Erie Backcountry Medicine, I've taken classes from them before, and they can be a little pricey, but they are good classes. Like they've got some professional folks teaching those.
Great.
Whitewater, let me see if I can pull them up. Let's see, Swiftwater. Like I said, I think that Bitterroot Trout Unlimited was offering one with a fairly well-known person. Again, I don't know if that's already happened or not, but they might be a good resource to check their website. They have events too. So if you're in that area, it might be kind of a cool group to get linked up with.
Yeah. Do you think you can send me that info? That'd be
Sure.
awesome.
Yeah, if you could just email me, just to remind me tomorrow to do that, that'd be great.
I will 100%.
Okay.
My husband has one more.
Yes. Yeah, that'd be great. So this, I think it's this Montana River Guides is what I was looking at earlier. I've heard good things about them. I have not personally taken any of these classes, but I think they do quite a few. So river guides have to be certified, with some of this. And so they're doing a lot of classes teaching the guides who are out with all of the folks, on our rivers every year. And so you're actually going to be like doing this stuff in the water. So they've got, it's Missoula, they've got some classes. Looks like this one might have already started. I guess it starts tomorrow, but you can see, when they have classes coming up. They do quite a few of them. So this might be a good resource, especially if you're in Missoula. It looks like they're offering quite a bit around there, and on your local rivers, which I think is really valuable. So I'm sure there's other ones. You could, again, ask Trailhead if they have any recommendations, because they're probably going to know the people a little better than I personally do. But yeah, I'd be happy to send you I think it was in a newsletter I just saw not too long ago with the Trout Unlimited folks doing a class, and yeah, happy to send you that stuff.